You know, when a patient has a serious infection, there's a critical moment where a decision has to be made, a decision that could literally mean the difference between life and death.
So, who makes that call? Who decides if a certain antibiotic is going to work? I mean, think about it. Without a consistent, reliable system, every single lab, every hospital, maybe even every country could be making different calls. It would be chaos. Well, this is the exact problem that the Clinical and Laboratory Standards Institute, or CLSI, was created to solve. And today, we're going to unpack exactly how they do it.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at what CLSI actually is. Then, we'll get into how they build their standards. It's a really unique process. After that, we'll decode the language you see on lab reports. Take a bit of a deeper dive into a key surveillance tool. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the massive impact all of this has on our health. Sound good? Let's jump in.
So, first things first. What exactly is this organization that holds so much authority in the world of laboratory medicine?
Okay, so here's the official definition. The key words here are not-for-profit and consensus. What that means is CLSI isn't some government body forcing rules on people. Nope, it's a global community of experts who come together to create voluntary standards. But these standards are so good, so effective, that they've become the gold standard for quality all over the world.
Now, and this didn't happen overnight. They've been building this reputation for a long, long time. They started way back in 1968, steadily gained credibility, started collaborating with the World Health Organization, and eventually, in a huge move, had their standards, their breakpoints, officially recognized by the FDA. This history is exactly why they are such a trusted voice.
All right, so we know who they are, but how do they actually make these standards that labs everywhere rely on? Well, it all comes down to a really cool consensus process.
It's this super collaborative multi-step effort. First, they get everybody in a room, well, a virtual room these days, experts from every corner of healthcare, industry, government, and, of course, clinical professions. Then, these experts work together to build a consensus. And this isn't a one-and-done deal. The documents are constantly being reevaluated. And get this, anyone can submit comments, which keeps the standard sharp, relevant, and robust.
Okay, now let's see how all that work translates into the real world. We're about to dive into the actual language used on lab reports. These are the words that directly guided doctors' choices when they're picking an antibiotic.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with this concept of a breakpoint. Just think of it like a threshold, a line in the sand. It's a specific concentration of an antibiotic, what we call the minimum inhibitory concentration, or MIC, and it's a dividing line. If the bacteria can be stopped by a concentration on one side of the line, the drug is probably going to work. If it's on the other side, well, not so much.
So, if a lab report says a bug is susceptible, that's your green light. It means the infection should respond to a normal standard dose of that antibiotic. It's the best case scenario.
Next up is susceptible dose dependent, or SDD. This one's a little more complicated. It's basically saying, yeah, this drug can work, but you have to use a special dosing regimen, like a much higher dose or giving it more often. So it's a conditional yes that needs a very specific action from the doctor.
Then you have intermediate. Think of this as the gray area. It might mean the drug could still work if it gets really concentrated at the site of the infection, like in the urinary tract. It also acts as a really important buffer zone, preventing tiny lab variations from accidentally calling something resistant when it's not.
And finally, resistant. This is the clear, unambiguous red light. It means the bug is not stopped by normal concentrations of the drug. Bottom line, you need to find a different antibiotic because this one isn't going to cut it.
So let's just quickly recap. We've got susceptible, the simple yes. SDD, the yes but with a different dose. Intermediate, the maybe, let's be careful. And resistant, the definite no. It's this clear framework that gives clinicians the confidence they need to make the right call for their patients.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about breakpoints, and those are all about treating one individual patient. But CLSI standards do something else that's really important. They help us see the big picture of antimicrobial resistance. And for that, we need a whole different tool, the ECO-F.
The biggest difference between breakpoints and ECOFs is the question they're trying to answer. A clinical breakpoint answers, will this drug work for this specific patient? It's all about immediate treatment. An epidemiological cutoff value, or ECOF, asks something totally different. It asks, is this bug showing signs of new, acquired resistance compared to its normal population? This isn't for treating a patient, it's for surveillance.
So an ECOF is basically another kind of dividing line. But this one separates the wild-type bugs, bacteria as they normally exist out in nature without any special defenses, from the non-wild-type ones that have started to pick up resistance. It's like an early warning system for new resistance trends.
Let's make this real with an example. Take the antibiotics ciprofloxacin and the bacteria E. coli. Most normal, wild-type E. coli are stopped by super low concentrations of the drug, but some have developed resistance and need higher doses. The ECOF is set right at that dividing line, 0.25 micrograms per milliliter. Any E. coli that needs more than that to be stopped gets flagged as non-wild type, which tells public health experts, hey, pay attention to this, something is changing.
Okay, so we've covered the who, the how, the clinical language, and the surveillance tools. Now let's just tie it all together and talk about why this system is so incredibly important. Why does this all matter? Well, the impact is just massive. On the front lines, these standards guide patient treatment every single day. On a global scale, tools like ECOFOFs let us track antimicrobial resistance. For scientists, it provides a framework for developing new drugs. And maybe most importantly, it ensures quality and consistency so a lab result from Tokyo can be understood and trusted just the same in Toronto. It creates a universal language. CLSI gives us the framework, the language we need to fight infectious diseases. But this is a moving target, right? It's a dynamic battle. As these microbes continue to evolve and get smarter, that consensus-driven, constantly reevaluating process we talked about, it's going to be more critical than ever to make sure our standards and our treatments can keep up.